but I'll just kind of give you a brief overview of kind of my education and where I'm at right now, what kind of practice I'm working in, and then we'll kind of go over some of the steps as far as optometry schools. Have you guys ever looked into optometry schools or applying into schools yet? No, so everybody's kind of just feeling their way towards, different avenues as far as careers go. It is probably, I'm guessing, what it's like, right? Everybody's kind of trying to figure out physical therapy versus optometry versus medical school. Yeah. Okay. So basically, I went to the University of Wyoming. I did my 4-year undergraduate work there. So I got my Bachelor's of Science in exercise physiology. So when I started in Laramie, I basically knew I wanted to do optometry. I had started wearing glasses as a 3rd grader, and so I had gone to the optometrist year after year. And when I was in high school, I just started talking with my home optometrist just about his career and kind of what optometry was like. And it sounded like he was very happy with the profession, enjoyed it. And so before I went to school, I was like, this sounds like a good career path. So when I started my freshman year, they don't have kind of a pre-optometry program. It's the same as pre-med. So basically, like you guys did, biology, chemistry, calculus, all of the prereqs for pre-med. And then at the end of my sophomore year, decided on exercise physiology, just because at that point kind of wanted to do something other than just stick with some of the biology courses. So I finished my Bachelor's of Science in Laramie after 4 years, and then applied into optometry school. And at the time I went into optometry school, there was only 18. And fortunately for you guys, there's now I think about 23 colleges of optometry, and that includes one in Canada, one in Puerto Rico. So there aren't a whole lot around to choose from. There aren't any in Wyoming, none in Montana. So the closest ones are probably Oregon and California. And then you have to go south to either Oklahoma, Texas, or further east to Indiana, Ohio, and then some on the East Coast. So I went to Southern California College of Optometry, and all of the optometry programs are a 4-year program, so in a way similar to med school. The first basically 2 years you're doing just a lot of core classes. You're redoing like anatomy, physiology, optics, different things like that. By the second year, you're starting to see a few patients, just doing general types of, not even exams at that point, but doing a lot of stuff on classmates. And then by the 3rd year, you're in clinic quite a bit. And then the 4th year of optometry school, basically no coursework, basically just seeing all patients by the 4th year. And then if you want to, you can do a residency program for a 5th year. And the residency programs are just a good way of expanding and specializing into different areas of optometry. So you could do contact lenses, there's low vision, helping people who are, have partially sighted just from either congenital problems or people with macular degeneration. There's ocular disease residencies, and you can do those at any of the colleges. So even though you go to school at one school, you can apply for residency programs anywhere across the United States. Any questions so far? No, if I need to slow down, I will. So when I graduated from optometry school, I grew up in Wyoming and wanted to get closer to family. At that time, my mom was pretty sick, so I came to Billings, and grew up in Cody, so only a couple hours. And I started in a private practice, and one of the nice things about optometry is that there's quite a few different modes of practice. You can do private practice by yourself, solo. You can do private practice with, one other partner, or multi-doctor practice. You could do retail. So some of the retail places would be like Costco, Walmart, iMart. Those are retail types of modes of practice. You could do HMOs, which here in Montana we don't have a lot of HMOs, but like in Oregon, California, you could do like Kaiser, which is a lot more kind of medical optometry. You could work for a VA hospital. You could do Indian Health Service. And some of those, like the IHSs, can help you pay back some of your loans, which are nice. So if you go work at a reservation, say for 3 or 4 years, they may pay back half or all of your loans. Yeah. Health Maintenance Organization. One big one on the West Coast would be like Kaiser Permanente is the name of one. And we don't have a whole lot of HMOs here in Montana, so I don't, but Kaiser is the one that I'm familiar with on the West Coast. So you could do Indian Health Service, VAs, even military. A lot of people, not a lot of people will do military, but Navy, Air Force, and that's a way of them paying back loans too. If you go, do a 4 or 8 year stint, you can get some loans repaid back that way as well. So I started in private practice for a couple years, and then I had an ophthalmology group here in town contact me and asked if I was interested in going to work for them, which is pretty similar to the same kind of work I was doing with the private practice. I see a lot of patients anywhere from, my youngest ones are probably like 2 years of age, and then I see some that are 95, 96. So I mean, I have a whole range of patients that I see, which is nice in the practice that I'm in, because you don't always have to see, the geriatric patients, but I don't have all kids either. I have a pretty wide range of ages I see. Some of them are just routine exams, so some of them, people are just coming in to get new glasses or new contacts, and everything is pretty normal. But with the 2 ophthalmologists I work with one retinal specialist and one general ophthalmologist, so we do see a lot of pathology in our practice. So there's a lot of people who have had retinal detachments, macular degeneration that come in, and it's kind of nice working with the ophthalmologist, because if they have a problem that I can't fix, then I can have them see the ophthalmologist that day or that week. So it's a really nice way to co-manage that way. The other thing, we see a lot of our diabetes, just because diabetes is such an epidemic, in our country right now. There's, every day we probably see, or just me alone, probably out of, 10, 12 patients a day, at least 2 or 3 are usually diabetic. So we do a lot of co-managing with family practice, PAs, sending letters back and forth, just to make sure that the eyes are healthy. And usually it's those diabetics that aren't, taking good care of themselves, aren't going in for the regular exams, that usually have complications, diabetic retinopathy. So we get to see kind of a wide range of things in our practice. The ophthalmologists, a lot of people come in and they get opticians, optometrists, and ophthalmologists easily confused. So the opticians are the ones that fit glasses. So they'll order glasses, order lenses, do adjustments. Optometrists are kind of in the middle of the two. So for me, I cannot do any surgery. If you live in Oklahoma, there's different laws depending on which state you live in. So some of the states like Oklahoma, Kentucky, they can do some laser procedures. And here in Montana, at this point, we have pretty good laws as far as what we can treat, what we can manage, but we can't at this time do any laser procedures. So I can treat glaucoma, so I can prescribe drops, I can prescribe oral medications. I just can't do any surgical procedures. So if somebody comes in with a red eye, they don't necessarily have to see the ophthalmologist. I can treat them for that. Same with glaucoma. I can treat glaucoma. If there's complications or the drops aren't working and they have to have surgery, then I'll refer them to the ophthalmologist for something like that. And then the ophthalmologists obviously are doing, a lot of surgical procedures for cataracts, lid surgery, a lot of injections these days for macular degeneration or diabetic retinopathy. So the mode I'm in is kind of nice because I've got somebody right there that can help with the more complicated cases. For other people, other optometrists in private practice, you know, they do have good relationships, especially in Montana, you know, with ophthalmology, working with optometry, and being able to co-manage and send patients back and forth as needed between the optometrist and ophthalmologist. So there's a lot of back and forth with patients if they have, you know, chronic illnesses, things like that. As far as some of the schools of optometry, like I said, when I went to school there was just 18, now there's 23, and a lot of them vary as far as class sizes and admissions. Some of the smaller schools, like Berkeley for one, last year they only had 300 applicants. Out of the 300 applicants, they took 69 students. On the other range, on the other side, like the Illinois College of Optometry was in Chicago, they had 1,100 applicants, and out of the 1,100 they took 171. So there's quite a range as far as what schools take as far as class sizes. The smallest ones probably are about 50, and then the larger ones are upwards of, you know, 150 to 200 students. So it just depends on what college you're looking at. I know growing up in Wyoming was part of what we call WICHE, which if you guys are looking into medical school, you may have heard of the WWAMI program before. And WICHE is something similar to WWAMI, except for WICHE is for optometry. So Montana does participate in the WICHE program. And basically what happens is if you go to a WICHE College of Optometry, which normally would be probably the West Coast schools, there's 3 in California, the 1 in Oregon, I believe are all WICHE. Montana will help you pay some of the tuition. So it might be a little less expensive going to school to some of the WICHE programs than if you go, say, to New York or Boston, Florida, Tennessee. Those schools don't participate. So to keep costs down, you know, you might want to look into some of the West Coast schools that are WICHE affiliated. And you have to apply for the WICHE program because usually the states only have a certain dollar amount set aside that they can, you know, maybe fund 7 students a year, and there might be, say, 10 or 12 students from Montana that want to go to optometry school that year. So you do have to apply, I think, in October 15th, I think, is the deadline for WICHE, and that's if you'd be starting school the next fall. So you can still apply for optometry school even in the spring, but to get WICHE funding, you really have to kind of be on the ball and, you know, get that going early. There's a really good website that if you guys are interested in the different optometry schools, they all have kind of different bits of information, but it's OPTED, so OPED.org. And on that website lists every optometry school, and there's a link to each optometry school's website on that optometryed.org. So if you want to get information about Forest Grove, which is right outside of Portland, they're a WICHE school, you can go to theirs. Most of them will have information on tuition, you know, cost of living. Not a whole lot of the schools give scholarships. When I went, I think the majority of my class, it was just loans. And even since I graduated, the cost has really shot up quite a bit. I mean, it's surprising how much graduate school is. I'm not for sure how much medical school is, but looking at some of these schools, the tuition average is about $40,000 a year, and that's just for tuition only. So you'll have, you know, books, equipment, living expenses in addition to that. So it looks like probably, just depending on what school you go to, I mean, they'll probably vary by maybe, you know, for your 4 years, it might vary by $50,000. But you're looking probably at graduating with about $200,000 in loans for a 4-year degree. So it's definitely not inexpensive. I mean, it's something that, it's an investment though. I mean, it's well worth it, don't get me wrong. I mean, the placement rates are high. Most of the schools have good statistics on their board examinations. So you have 3 sets of boards that you have to take, and all of them are taken while you're still in school. So it's called the NBEO, National Board of Examiners in Optometry. So you'll have one that's after probably your 2nd year of school. You'll have a second one your 3rd year, and then another one right before you graduate. And so once you've graduated, your boards pretty much are completed. And some of the one of the websites that I was looking at for one of the schools, I think it was on the Arizona school. There's a school in Glendale, Arizona, right outside of Phoenix, and they opened just maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But they did say that employment for optometry is expected to grow by 33% in the next maybe 5-10 years. And mostly just because of the booming population as far as the baby boomers are getting older. You know, we're seeing a lot more macular degeneration in the older population. And then same with diabetes. You know, we have a lot of diabetes in our country, so there's more need for health care, and that includes eye care. And then there's just a lot of more elderly optometrists. I mean, I know people that are practicing into their 70s, even mid-70s, so there's a lot of optometrists that are also getting ready to retire. So, I mean, it's a good outlook for optometry as far as being able to find, you know, get a job and find work once you finish school. So, as far as that goes, do you guys have questions? Yeah.
You talked about the program. Do you apply to that for your scholarship? Do you apply to the company schools separate from that?
Exactly. Yep. So you would apply, you know, you put your applications out for optometry schools. So in order to get in, you have to take what's called an OAT, an optometry's admission test, kind of similar to the MCAT, but it's for optometry. So basically it's going to test you on all your sciences. So most of the schools have pretty similar prerequisites as far as their classes go. A few of them, you know, are different, but for the most part, they want you to have 2 semesters worth of general biology, microbiology, at least 1 semester of organic chemistry. They want you to have a psychology, statistics, 2 semesters of physics. So kind of like the MCAT, they're testing you on your math and science. And so once you have the OAT finished, then you apply separately to each different school. And then the different schools look at the application, kind of see what your scores are, what your GPA is. It looked like the average GPA on most of the schools was like around 3.3, 3.5. So you definitely don't need, you know, a 4.0 to get into school. A lot of schools want somebody that's really well-rounded, so it's good to get into different extracurricular activities here on campus, or just community service type things like that. Because just like applying to medical school, you got to make yourself stand out a little bit. So it's not all what's on paper. It's just not having a 4.0 and having really good test scores. It's just being very well-rounded. If you can get involved in groups and organizations around campus, if you can do community service, different things like that, that'll help you, you know, help your resume stand out more so than maybe somebody else who doesn't put in extra time outside the classroom. So, but yeah, the witchy would be something separate. Anything else? I mean, for me, for optometry, I've been out of school, 12 years now, and it's been very good. I mean, seems like when I started school, there started to be more females entering optometry school than males, and I think it's still that way. There's still a few more females than males, just because there's a lot of flexibility for having a career and family. So, as you can see, I'm on ready to have a baby. So this is number 3 for me. So it's been a good career as far as balancing home life and still being able to work outside the home. So you know, my job is pretty flexible. I go in at 8:30 and I'm done by 5, if not earlier, every day. Since my 2 older kids have started school, I finish work about 3 on 2 days a week, and then, or 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week I do work till 5. But it's a nice balance just to be able to work outside the home and have a career, but then still have time for my kids. So where I work, I have very little on-call time, which is nice too. Working with the 2 ophthalmologists, I'll cover for them if they're out of town or on vacation, but otherwise they're usually the ones taking call. And if it's one of my patients, if there's a contact lens related problem, then I'll go in. But out of the 10 years I've been working in this practice, I've probably been called in 10 times at the most. So it's kind of nice just to be able to have flexibility with family, career. I don't have to get up in the middle of the night and rush to the office to, to see somebody. So it definitely is a good flexibility, there's good flexibility with it, and it's a good way to balance having a family and working as well. But there's still plenty of men that are out there working too, so it's good for them too. You can still, make a decent living, but you don't have to be at the hospital at 6 in the morning and then not get home till maybe 10 or 11, at night after you do your rounds and see your patients. So, so that aspect is good. Any other questions?
What about average salary?
Average salary, a lot of it depends upon what mode of practice you're in. You'll probably, as far as one of the websites that I was looking at for optometry school said the average OD first year out of school makes about $107,000 a year, and that obviously will go up, the longer you've been out of school. If you're working for like an IHS or government service, usually your salary might be a little bit lower just because of other benefits with either time off, health insurance, things like that. If you're in private practice owning your own business, that's probably the way to make the most money. I know optometrists who make probably $200,000 or more doing that. But stress level and things like that are going to be more too, and you're going to have to, put a little more time into it, maybe less vacation time unless you've got a partner that can cover when you're not there. Because if you're not working and you're on your own, you're not, making any money, but there's definitely ODs out there that can make $200,000 in their own practice. So that's a good living for, for working 40 hours a week. If you do retail optometry, you have less flexibility with that. Those are, Walmart, Costco, iMart. Pretty much you have to sign a contract with them, and usually they want you working at least 6 days a week, maybe even 7 days a week. So if you don't have somebody who could work weekends for you, you're kind of tied into whatever their contract is. And I think those optometrists, I'm not for sure exactly how much they make, but they make good money, but they also work, a lot of weekends into the evenings, later on, maybe 6, 7 o'clock at night. And they pretty much have to work according to their lease agreement. So not as much flexibility as if you had your own practice, but those companies, they buy your equipment, so you don't have to put a lot of money into getting started. Because starting your own practice is, costs probably $100,000 to $200,000 if you're going to open cold. So not too many optometrists open cold. There are some that do, but you're probably better off buying an already established practice and taking over for a retiring optometrist versus starting from the bottom up or starting cold. So it can be done, but you probably have to supplement your income somehow by working for somebody else while you're getting your own practice started, is how a lot of optometrists do that. They'll have to work, maybe retail a couple days a week and then be in their own practice, trying to build it up until they can get busy enough to be on their own. So, and they always told us when I was in optometry school, you want to just basically, move to where you want to live, wherever you're from or whatever city, town, region you want to live in. Go there and not necessarily open your own practice, but live where you want to work, not necessarily where you're going to make the most money. So, you could make a lot of money, but you might be living, in Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, where it's, minus 60 all year round, and you might not be very happy, even though you might be making a ton of money. So you kind of, want to go where you want to live for, for long term, even if it means, the dollar amount might be less, but it's worth it in the end to enjoy where you live versus moving somewhere where you don't want to live just to, make a few extra dollars. But it is a good career. I think that's why there's been, 5 new schools that have opened up in the last 10 years. So there's a new one in California, there's been a new one in Texas, Kentucky has a new one, Illinois has a new one, and then I'm not for sure where the other one is, but there's definitely room for, more optometrists, and it's a good solid career. So, yes. Yeah. If anyone ever wants to come shadow, that's probably one of the best things to do before applying to optometry school. And the optometry schools probably want to know if you've, put any time into shadowing, just so you kind of know what the day-to-day schedule is like and, what you'll be doing every day. And other optometrists here in town, too, are very open to that, because we all had to do it when we were getting ready to get into school. We all had to sit in a dark room and watch the doctor flip dials and, check the patients. It's not the most fun, I'll admit, sitting in there just watching, but when you're the one doing it and looking into the eyes, it's a lot more interesting. But if anyone is ever interested in shadowing for a couple half days, you might not want to sit in there 8 hours a day, but if you want to break it up and do a few short days here and there, you can contact me. I'd be more than happy to have you come to my office. And then, like I say, all the optometrists here in town are very open to accommodating students that are looking into going into practice. And like I say, the optometry schools will want to know if you've done any shadowing, just because you kind of know what you're getting into before you get to school. And one of the nice things too I like about optometry is that even though some of the days it seems like you're doing the same thing, with technology now, there's a lot of new advancements for treatments of macular degeneration for glaucoma. So it's not a stagnant field. You'll definitely learn new things every year that you can apply to your practice. So new developments in contact lenses, new developments for, dry eyes, new developments for surgical procedures for glaucoma. So it's something that's always changing. You're not going to just be, crunching numbers all day, doing the same thing. Even since I got out, there's been a lot of technology changes. So that's one of the things that kind of got me interested, is that, there's always going to be something new with technology that's going to help you in your practice as far as diagnosing something or how to manage a disease. So I think that's a plus. So trying to look here and see if I have any other notes that I can share with you. Any other questions? Trying to think if I've kind of touched base on everything that you guys are wanting to know about optometry. Has anyone decided on optometry yet? I mean, is anyone leaning? Not necessarily, huh? No, which is okay, because I think I had some students in my class in California, and one guy was in accounting for years and years and years before he decided to go into optometry, and then he just got tired of doing accounting and went back to school and did his prereqs and applied for optometry school and got in. So there's quite a few that do biology and do pre-med before optometry school. I think probably in my class there was probably 80% that were biology majors, but there was a few that had chemistry majors, a few that had business majors. So I mean, you don't necessarily have to stick, to all your sciences. You can kind of branch out, do other things as long as you have your 2 years of prereqs in. You could double major and do business and biology, or accounting, biology, chemistry, and accounting. I mean, it's up to you. And if you think you want to eventually own your own business, definitely take some business courses while you're here, because that will definitely help out when you're managing your own business. And that's one thing in optometry school, you do have practice management type courses, but it's very different when you get out on your own running a business if you don't have, any business background. So optometrists are good doctors. We're not good business people, generally speaking. So if you think you want to be out on your own, running your own business, I definitely say take some business courses. Either, practice management, accounting, marketing, any of those will be helpful if you someday want to run your own practice. So I know a lot of optometrists that are in private practice, and I mean, it's very rewarding for them, but at first, it takes a lot to figure out the business side of things. They rely on other optometrists that have been in practice a long time, or accountants, things like that. But definitely a lot has changed as far as insurance and stuff goes, not just because of Obamacare, but just because of different laws and things they've enacted. So even in my practice, if we have a vision plan and they come in for a routine exam, sometimes if we find something wrong with their eye, such as glaucoma, diabetes, a lot of times we have to have them come back, on a different day, because we can't bill vision insurance the same day as medical insurance. So there's a lot of things, to learn as far as the practice management side of running a business. And you can either, you figure it out along the way and other optometrists help you, but it definitely is, I'm sure, not going to get any easier, as time goes on. There'll be changes with different medical plans and vision plans and stuff that you just have to deal with and change with as the insurance companies change. So. Do you have a lot of paperwork? Well, that's a good question. I mean, there's a little bit, but not a ton. A lot of offices are going with electronic health records now, and so that kind of streamlines things as far as having to input stuff. I mean, you have to input your information into the computer, but once you've got it, it's easier, a little easier to share with other doctors like internists, PAs, or other doctors in your practice. Right now in our office, we haven't transitioned our records over to electronic health records just because we have so many different entities. What works for the retinal specialist won't necessarily work for me, won't work for our cataract surgeon. So we've kind of been dragging our feet as far as going electronic with our records. So we're still writing, everything in a chart, which for me, it's okay. I don't mind it at all. And it doesn't really take that much time. I mean, the most paperwork we have is if, somebody gets referred in for a migraine from their primary care doctor, we do an exam. If we had the electronic health records, we could just probably punch a button and it would generate, a letter to send to the primary care doctor, which now we just have to sit and type it out ourselves. So it's not too bad, really. It doesn't take too much extra time. And with electronic health records, those doctors that have been doing it for a while, really love it, but some of the programs, it takes a long time to learn the system and where to input things, so sometimes the learning curve is, takes a while for that, but it's not too bad. For me anyway. For our office manager who runs the whole show and does all the insurance and stuff, she probably have a different answer for you. But for me, that's kind of the nice thing too about, just being employed. When I leave, I don't have to worry about any insurance billing, what's getting paid, what's getting not paid. I just kind of see my patients, and at the end of the day, I get to leave. If you're going to be a business owner, then you'll probably have a lot more paperwork, a lot more insurance stuff that you have to look at every day. So, but all different modes have their advantages, have their disadvantages. I mean, I'm sure somebody who's in private practice will tell you, they have office managers that do their stuff too. So, anything else? I mean, it's definitely a rewarding career. If you guys are interested, the best thing to do is, go find somebody to shadow with. You can call me, or if you have an optometrist already in town that you see, I'm sure they'd be more than, happy to have you come to their office and, do some shadowing. So I did it when I was in high school and college too, and it's the best thing to know if it's going to be something you like. Same with physical therapy. If you think you're interested in that, contact a physical therapist and follow them around for a half day or a day and kind of see what their day is like, and you'll kind of get an idea if it's something that you're going to, want to do the rest of your life, because when you go to school for 4 years and, get that education, you're going to want to use it for a while. So, but definitely go to the opted.org. It has a lot of good information. You can see where all the schools are at. Like I say, there's different tuitions depending on which school. Some of the schools are state schools, so like if you were from Indiana, Indiana University has a school, and there's a big difference between in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition between some of the state schools. So if you're out of state here, but your home state has an optometry school, you could save probably $15,000 a year by going to your, an in-state school. The one I went to was just a private optometry school, so tuition for everybody was the same. Didn't matter if you were from Wyoming or California. Other than the WICHE program, if you were able to get into the WICHE, then you could save a little bit of money that way. But it's nice to look at those websites. They have, good information about tuition, expenses. A lot of them too will tell you the average GPA. They'll tell you the average OAT scores of the entering class. They'll show you how many kids pass the NBEO, the national board. So it has a lot of information on kind of stuff that you might be interested in knowing. if you get ready to apply to school. Anything else? No? That's it? Yeah. Okay. Good luck with deciding, because I know it's hard. It's a big decision to try to figure out what to do with the rest of your life, and you want to do something that's rewarding and challenging, but fun. So, yeah, you're welcome. Nope, it's WICHE. Yep.